Hi, everyone. Victoria Ali here. I'm really glad to see you again. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Just wanted to talk a little bit about invisible needs again today. I know we might have talked about it on some other videos, but one of the reasons why I wrote about invisible needs versus visible needs is because I started doing some research as to why in countries, especially that have a lot of economic resources, why we experience so much difficulty with addiction, with suicide, with unhappiness, and a feeling of scarcity. When I took a big look at it, I was very mystified because what I could see were governmental agencies as well as private industry, and as my own experience as a low-income college student, was that if I wanted in a country that has a lot of resources to find food or shelter or water and that kind of thing, I was able to find a way to do that, even if it took me a week or two, sleeping on friends' couches, going to food banks, things like this. There was a way for me to make it, trading off work in a cafeteria or a restaurant for food and for some income. There was just always seemed to be a way that I could scramble to make that happen. And maybe that's just my background and the way of the farm. You always have to try to get up early and get things done and figure things out, and the weather changes. And so perhaps that's why I was more open to figuring out how to get these physical needs met. But I personally went through a lot of trauma in my life. I'm not trying to be a victim about it. I'm just saying, life and death situations a couple times, and too much information too early in life, you could say, in certain areas. In any case, when I did some research about this to find out, why am I happy today? And this happened, after a lot of internal work and changes in career and changes in relationships until I finally got to a place of abundance in all the areas of my life. And I took a look and I stepped back and I said, how is this happening? How am I able to have this kind of abundance and prosperity in every single area of my life? And a lot of people are struggling. Why is it that some people have a lot more income than I do and are in agony and they're in trouble mental health wise and addiction wise and relationship wise? They're unable to find a soulmate even though they have unlimited finances. And it finally occurred to me that the only difference between people that are struggling with physical things is that those things can actually be figured out, hopefully, unless your country is going through an extreme amount of economic turmoil. And of course, not every country has this ability or every area of the planet. However, I've noticed that even in the lower income neighborhoods that I've lived in or been around, that there's a lot of happiness in some of these areas. And I thought to myself, what is going on here? We're told that if we are able to get all our needs met and look a certain way and have a certain status and, marry a certain person and have a certain job, that we will be happy. And what I was finding was is that people that had all those things weren't necessarily happy. And people that didn't have those things weren't necessarily happy. And so I was really wondering what is going on here. And the more I thought about it, the more I was able to get down to something that works for me. And that is that even though we might have our physical needs met in the world, and let's take a look at those physical needs. This is the Survival 101 book. Even if I have, clean water to drink and to bathe in, and food that's healthy and nutritious, or clothing that's keeping me warm or cool, as the case may be, sanitation, a good place to get rid of all of my trash, and housing, a place that's safe from the elements, some kind of touch, some kind of transportation. Even if I have all these things met, regardless of my income, I may still have some issues in the world. And that is because I think we overlook these invisible needs and don't always know how to get them met directly. And those invisible needs, as I see it, are security. This could be financial security, emotional security, physical security. Do you feel the world is safe or not? I remember Jim Carrey in his book writes about having some kind of, I don't know if it's razor wire or whatever, on the walls of his compound because of the fact that, people could jump over there and start trying to get to know him personally, and he's not available for that. So there can be some fear. Secondly is validation. Do I feel like I'm okay? Do I feel like I'm not okay? And what kind of a job am I going to get if I feel I'm not okay? We brought that up a lot in the career section. And so that's why getting underneath these invisible needs and finding ways to meet them directly is really important. The third one is love. Do I feel lovable? Do I feel love for myself and others? Do I receive love? Do I feel warmth and joy and can I do that on my own, or do I need one of these physical things in order to do it? So one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of times people don't realize that it might be an invisible need that they have. And so they try to fill it with a visible solution. For instance, I might need to feel like I'm okay and I'm valuable in the world and a sense of fitting in. And so when I go to buy a car, instead of purchasing a car that I can afford, I might go ahead and buy something that's more expensive, more flashy, because that way I'm trying to get something more met in my needs than just transportation from here to there. I'm actually trying to get a need met to look good to others so that they will think that I'm okay. And so that's a big reason why I am really careful about what need am I really trying to get met. I don't think there's a problem if I go out and buy a fancy car if I can afford it. However, if I have to buy that fancy car in order to feel okay, that's a different story. If I buy it for fun, I feel free driving it. My friends joke with me about it or appreciate it or whatever. That's one thing. But if I need it and I put myself in financial turmoil in order to make it happen, then that's difficult. And on a really small level, again, back in college, I can give you an example where my dad actually gave me a car. It was an old car, and I just thought that was so great. I'll get around and gives me more independence in riding the bus. And that car ended up costing me like $300 a month versus the bus pass that was costing me like $75 a month to go all over an entire region. And so what ended up happening was I ended up getting all these parking tickets, which I wasn't expecting. And that ended up costing me money, the gas, the insurance. Got in a car accident, somebody ran into me, and then that was a cost. And so what I realized is that although at the time having a car and having that kind of independence to be able to get up and go whenever I wanted to was convenient, it really wasn't a match for where I was financially. And so when I went back to the bus primarily, I was also able to sometimes pay roommates gas to take me places, or, there were all these different options that I was able to do in order to make sure that my need was met for transportation, but I wasn't trying to act like a big shot. And I think I've mentioned in another video the concept of after I graduated from college and was in a relationship, and the man didn't earn as much as I did, and I didn't really earn that much. However, I was constantly robbing Peter to pay Paul. Instead of paying my student loans, I was basically taking people out to eat and acting like a big shot and paying more of the bills with my boyfriend than he was paying. And at the end of the day, I ended up having to tell him, look, either we have to be equal here in what we're contributing to the household as far as food and that kind of thing, or I need to start locking these cabinets. And I think that was difficult. Within 2 weeks, he left, and then I fell apart completely because I ended up using a relationship to try to fill these invisible needs with somebody who wasn't available. And there was nothing wrong with that. It was just the fact that we weren't a match, and I was trying to make it work because I felt that I had to get my needs met for validation by being in this relationship and by being attractive to a male and by even being with somebody who wasn't at the point in life to be building this kind of a life that I was building. When he left, I just fell apart because I think so much of my identity, my validation in life was tied to whether I had a male in my life that would really wanted to be there and be with me. And so I didn't have that internal resource separate from a man, separate from a specific job or a specific income. I didn't have this resource inside that told me that I was okay no matter what, just for breathing, just for being alive. And so when I talk about these mismatches, they can sometimes be extreme. I mean, another example is when I was leaning on alcohol in order to try to deal with post-traumatic stress, feeling like survivor's guilt, I'm a mistake, I shouldn't be here. Anyway, I didn't realize until probably into my 30s or 40s what I was doing, which was that I was using some of these external things, such as what job I had, how much income I made, which man I was involved with, whether he owned a home or not, whether we were going to get married or not. And I mean, that's the kind of thing that I was having struggles with. So since then, what I've learned is that I can find invisible solutions, emotional, invisible types of solutions to fill these invisible needs. If I want to feel a sense of security, I can center myself. I can do a meditation. I can breathe. I can do my finances and get some clarity around that and make sure that the decisions that I'm making are truly abundant for me. And abundant for me doesn't mean extravagant or looking like I'm wealthy. What abundance means for me is I have the income planned to pay these expenses. And I know that there's savings and I know that there's a vision that I can shoot towards and I can work towards anything in my life that I would like to change around that. And so as far as physical security goes, instead of feeling like I need to be in a relationship with a tough guy who might be unavailable emotionally, who might have a problem with anger, for instance, maybe I can find that sense of security within myself and by meditating, again, by making sure I have locks on my doors and cameras and things like that. And those might be external solutions, but there are many different ways to get these needs met. And what I have found is that if I can get those needs, these invisible needs for love and for security and for validation and knowing that I'm okay, met in invisible ways or in ways that I don't need to rely on a specific person, place, or circumstance to provide them, then I stand a better chance. So what I have learned about that sense of security and that sense of validation and being okay and that sense of feeling loved or lovable is that if I place those invisible needs at the hands of physical solutions, such as a specific person being there for me in a specific way, or making a certain amount of income up or down, or buying things that are more expensive in order to get the approval of people outside of myself, then I am probably going to struggle at some point in my life when those things disappoint me or don't show up on the level at which I expect them to. So this is the situation, is that if for some reason you're out there and you find yourself regularly feeling this sense of lack or scarcity or alone in the world, like, what is there something wrong with me that I don't have any good friends or a close relationship with a partner? If I find myself in some form of a lack, then I need to take a look at and observe the ways that I'm trying to get that need filled. Am I going to the bar in order to drink, to find some affection there, or to find some validation or some fun, or to feel like I'm okay or that I fit in? Or am I okay being on my own, taking a walk, calling a friend that I don't expect something from? And I think that finding direct ways to get these needs met, rather than what advertisers might tell us are the ways to get these needs met. A lot of times I see this in advertisements. So write in the comments some of the funny ways or some of the painful ways that you have tried to fill some of these invisible needs for love and validation and security in your life with a physical person or a thing or finances. And I'd love to hear what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. And as always, I'm wishing you health, happiness, prosperity, and abundance today and always. And until we meet again, take care.